So this is my 2021 model Axis M200 Mini Bike. Picked this up at Lowe's Home Improvement. I've only had it about a week. I'd been looking at them, for a while, and it wasn't really something that I needed. It was just something that I thought it was pretty cool looking, and I've always liked the mini bikes, especially the ones with the larger ATV style tires on them and all, and I just thought it'd be kind of cool to mess around with. And I looked at this one and the Coleman CT 200 UEX model that they sell at Tractor Supply and some of the other stores, and ended up going with this one. It's essentially the same thing. It's got the same engine. It's a 196cc Hyson engine. Tires and everything are the same, frame's the same, color options are different. This one has like a carbon fiber type paint job on the fake gas tank and fender area. As where the Coleman, you can get various other different colors depending on what store you go to. Part of the reason I went with this one is the seat it has a Springer seat on it. So that helps, with the ride quality on rougher terrain, absorbs some of the bumps that you would feel normally in your tailbone. Also, this one has an LED headlight bulb inside the headlight housing, comes standard. You can see the LED in there. Now this LED only illuminates on the top side. It only has a chipset on the top side there, so it just kind of mainly illuminates the top half of the headlight housing, and it's really good at shining at a far distance. However, it's not as great at putting light down right in front of the front tire on the ground. I'm planning on upgrading that with a 360-degree illumination LED bulb that I found on Amazon. I'll be doing that probably in the near future. That way that I get the light all the way around inside the housing, probably improve my pattern of my light output out of this lens here. But it's all right though. I mean, it's better than the Coleman as far as brightness goes. That Coleman gets a halogen style bulb. It's kind of dim, and it changes brightness based on how high the engine revs up. So like when it's idling, it's dimmer. And when the Coleman engine revs out all the way, it's at its brightest, as opposed to where this LED on this Axis here, it stays the same brightness at idle all the way up to maximum RPM. And so that's a good thing. You don't get that fluctuation, in RPM. You can kind of see the carbon fiber paint pattern there that you get on the fender and gas tank area, and back fender as well. You can see the Springer seat. You get dual springs there. I thought this was pretty neat. You got your VIN number there and your date of manufacturer. Seat is really comfortable. I mean, it's got a lot of padding in it already. The seat appears to be the same as the Coleman, but like I said, just with the Springer suspension in it, so that definitely makes a difference. You also have suspension on the front forks, soak up a good amount of bumps with that. And as with the Coleman as well, you get the same storage compartment here, which is useful, for putting gloves or water bottle, whatever in, if you're riding, you want to carry some things with you. It's a nice little addition that they put on these mini bikes. And I probably got about 10 hours on it. Like I said, I've had it about a week, and been really satisfied with it. As these all come, just like the Coleman, they come with the jack shaft transmission setup, which I've had no problems out of. I mean, it's got a centrifugal clutch in here. I'm just gonna take these top pins off and get a little view from the top in there. There are 2 pins at the bottom you can remove and get this cover completely off. So you have this jack shaft is a gear reduction system that basically gears it down for quicker acceleration and hill climbing ability, as opposed to just having one chain going to the centrifugal clutch here. You know, you wouldn't have that gear reduction, and your hill climbing abilities wouldn't be good at all. Because I used to, when I was growing up, I had a go-kart, and it just had a centrifugal clutch with the chain going right to it, to the axle, and it did not climb hills good at all. It would just, the clutch would go to slipping. This bike right here, it has no problem, you know, starting on a hill or climbing any hill like that, and it accelerates really good. I mean, it's got a lot of torque and all, so I've been really pleased with it. I mean, I feel like at some point I might upgrade to a torque converter CVT style transmission in place of this jack shaft. But I mean, you know, buying this as it is not and riding it as is with this jack shaft on it is not a, I mean, you can have a lot of fun and not even change it at all, and it will pull, you know, a grown man just fine. I mean, the limit, weight limit on this bike is 220 pounds, which I've seen many people on YouTube and stuff that are much heavier than that. They have these bikes and they pull them just fine. If you're worried about that, you don't really don't need to be, because it's got enough power and torque, and with the jack shaft and all, it's enough gear reduction that you don't even notice that. I think the only thing that, you know, the heavier the rider, you may have a little bit less top speed the heavier the rider gets, but you know, all in all, it's you know, it has no problem with grown adults on it. So these foot pegs, they fold out of the way. I've not had any problems with them. I've actually stood up on them and to kind of raise myself up off the seat, you know, when I'd get in some really rough terrain like that, and they've not tried to break or anything like that. I'm not saying you couldn't break them, but you know, they've held up well for me. The kickstand has been real stout. Haven't had any issues out of that. It's spring loaded, so as you can see, you know, it's a pretty stout piece. Holds the bike up well, and it stays up when you're riding. Haven't had any problems with it falling down. This right here is part of your chain adjustment. You have this on each side of the bike. You can adjust the tension on the chain. So far, I've not had to do much adjusting to the chain. It stayed pretty well, you know, within the slack range. I hadn't had the chain pop off yet or anything like that, so that's been good. And I keep the chain, you know, lubed periodically with chain lube. You know, as usual with anything like that, it's going to pick up debris. You can see grass clippings and things like to stick to it, and you know, that's kind of a given with stuff like that. These tires right here, they recommend 10 psi in them, and so far the traction of the tires I've been really pleased with. I mean, they haven't I haven't had the bike try to slide out from under me or anything. The only thing I have noticed with it is that, you know, it's kind of just like with a dirt bike, is that, you know, when you get on a rock or something, gravel, it can feel a little washy feeling. You know, you have to kind of be careful on that. But I wouldn't say probably not as much so as with a dirt bike with a narrower tire you do. This is, with the wider tires, it's a little bit more forgiving gravel and rock and things like that, loose rock. But yeah, I've so far been really pleased with it. This brake lever has been upgraded. This is not the stock one that comes on here, although it is very similar replacement for the stock one. The stock one, it was the end of it, it broke. Part of it broke off here on the end, and I had a real sharp edge there. And so I thought about, you know, on my stock one, just kind of dremeling it down to where it wasn't so sharp and just keeping it, because it still was functional. I still had probably about from there back left, you know, of it to grab with your fingers. But anyway, I found this one on Amazon as well as a replacement for the stock one. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually think that the build quality of this one is better than the original. The lever itself just feels stronger. This is chrome. The original was like a silver aluminum color, and so was the bracket was silver aluminum. And you see how this one is painted black on the bracket, and then you get the chrome finish on the actual lever. And that was pretty straightforward to install. I mean, it's not complicated, you know. Just probably the hardest part, reattaching the cable to it, but even that wasn't hard to do once you figured it out. And I really feel like that this lever, like I said, is stronger, and I think it might be just a tad bit longer, so it allows you to, you know, to grab it a little bit easier. I'm thinking about possibly changing this twist throttle to a thumb throttle. I've seen that as a upgrade as well on Amazon for these, and I'm thinking about maybe doing that. Right now, I'm not having any problems out of this. It's doing all right, but I might end up doing the thumb throttle at some point. We'll see. So. Bike is really good on gas. You can put a tank of gas in it. It's just shy of a gallon capacity. It's like 0.9 something of a gallon. So this is the other side of the bike. Moving around, I was talking about the gas tank capacity. So basically, when you get it, you know, you got your standard twist on cap. It's a non-threaded cap, so it's kind of a twist lock set up. You have a little gasket in there. And one thing that's really cool is they give you this little strainer screen that is removable, and that basically just keeps trash and stuff that may find its way past this gas cap from getting down in the tank. And also when you're pouring gas in there, filling it up, it just kind of keeps it, you know, strains out any potential pieces of trash and debris that you might you know, may fall into the tank. So that's a pretty good idea. You know, it comes standard on it. The recoil start is super easy to pull. I mean, this engine it's very easy to start. I mean, it doesn't, I haven't had it kick back on me or anything like that. So far, all the recoil, the cord always winds up. I don't let it snap back from, you know, a mile away like, you know, some people do when they pull the cord out. You know, I pull it out and I let it go back in slowly. I think that helps the longevity of these recoils last, you know, when you don't pull them, yank them as far as they can out and let them snap back like that, you know. But hey, that's just me, you know. And then of course over here you have a fuel shutoff valve, is this bottom valve here. Back is off, forward is on. The gray lever is your choke, that's off. You know, all the way back is on. This bike, when I first got it home, put oil in it and gas and choked it, and it started on the first pull. and it will start on the first pull every time since then. You know, I've been very impressed with that. It just cranks right up, and as soon as you start it up, you can cut the choke right off. It does not try to knock back off on you. It's not extremely cold natured or anything like that. So I mean, that's impressive to me. You know, some small engines, it's like you start them up, and if you cut the choke off too soon, they'll cut back off, and they're real cold natured, you know, like that. This one's not that way. It stays running, and I mean, I'll let it warm up for, you know, maybe a couple of minutes to 5 minutes if it's cold outside, but other than that, I mean, it's just not a cold natured engine like that, which is good. So this air cleaner here, I really like this stock setup. I mean, it's a foam pre-filter on the outside, and then on the inside behind this is a paper element. So you got really good filtration in stock form, I think, and I really want to leave this stock air cleaner setup on mine. I know there's kits out there where you can put aftermarket carbs on, and the filter kind of sits out here, kind of cone style filter, and that's cool and all. I think the only thing with that for me is I feel like that because it sticks out further past the bike, you know, that if you were to lay the bike down or go by a tree or something, or close fence post, whatever, that you may, in my particular situation, you would, you know, run the risk of, you know, knocking the filter off easier, or if you hit it hard enough, it could damage the carburetor where the studs mount to the engine. I mean, you know, that's, it's a possibility, you know. I mean, obviously you can make more power and stuff, and a lot of people would say it looks cooler and all like that, but I really want to stick with this stock setup, I think, for me, just because it's more tucked into the bike and streamlined along the sides there, that you're not going to have it sticking out as far to potentially get broken off. These two tubes here are what suck the air up from the bottom into the air box when it's sitting on there. And one thing I might do with this bike, so these bikes, you know, they try to make them carb compliant, you know, and everything, so they can be sold in a bunch of different states and things like that. One thing I understand about these newer Colemans and this Axis here with these engines here is that they have a non-adjustable carburetor. So the main jet is non-removable, the idle is not adjustable, things like that. But you can get a carb for these, and I've seen a video or two on YouTube of some people talking about them as a good replacement carb that is actually just like the stock one, but it has the ability to change out the main jets. So like if you made any kind of modifications, like say to your exhaust, and you need to rejet it so that it didn't run lean or something such as that, that stock carb that has the adjustability of removable main jets, an idle adjustment screw, things like that, would allow you to do that, but it allows you to keep the stock setup, your stock air box and all like that. And I really like the idea of that. So that might be something that I do within time as well. I may swap to that carburetor, because I've heard really good things about it, you know, as being a stock replacement. Again, a lot of these things that I have done so far and talking about doing, most people wouldn't really consider them mods. I mean, they're, in a way, they're mods, but they're, I guess, more like improvements upon stock, is what I would kind of call it. And that's kind of what I'm looking to do. I mean, you can go from mild to wild, you know, as far as modifications go with these. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do to these engines here internally, valve springs, billet, you know, connecting rod, billet flywheel, you know, things, and rev them out a lot higher and things such as that, and even do engine swaps to bigger, more powerful engines, you know. But I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I'm having fun just riding this around. Like I said, this is not something that I needed, you know, necessarily. I thought it was pretty neat, you know, and I just enjoy riding it around. It's just a blast, you know, just to mess around on. I mean, you know, if you're thinking about getting one, you know, and you're kind of on the fence about, you know, well, you know, you don't really think you need it, but you know, you might like to have it. Just, you know, kind of, you know, save up, go on and get it, you know, because you're gonna have fun on it. I mean, you know, it's a different experience. I mean, than yeah, riding an ATV or even a regular dirt bike. You know, I used to have a dirt bike in the past, you know, and all, and I'm gonna be honest with you, compared to a regular dirt bike, I find the seat a lot more comfortable on this for longer periods of riding, which I was a little unsure of. But you know, the amount of padding that you get in the seat and the fact that the seat has springs suspension under it, that makes a huge difference in how quickly your tailbone can get to hurting, you know, after a ride, you know. And so far I have no complaints as far as comfort goes. I mean, I will say this, if you get in some really rough stuff, like you get on some ground or something that's almost like you know, very rippled or cobblestone like, I mean, obviously the suspension on the front and the seat can't keep up with that, you know, and I mean, you're gonna get shook a little bit on that, especially if you're traveling at a decent amount of speed. But for what it is, you know, and for what suspension it does have and all like that, you know, you can't complain too much, you know. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a, you don't got full-blown suspension on it like a dirt bike or something like that. So it does pretty good for what it is. Obviously, you have on the Coleman and the Axis here, you have a rear drum brake. It's mechanical cable actuated. So far, I mean, the brake has done all right for me. I mean, it's not going to be the greatest brake in the world, you know. I think for me, it's definitely adequate. I don't use it a whole lot. I try to kind of anticipate my slowing down and stuff, and most of the time I can slow down enough to where I don't have to use the brake excessively to slow the bike down. But when I do use it, it does stop me and slow me down in a way that is adequate, you know, for the weight of the bike. You know, the bike's about 135 pounds. And with, you know, me on it, I mean, it does pretty good. I mean, it would be kind of cool if they put a drum brake also on the front wheel. I hear the European models of these bikes get the drum brake on the front. I'm not really sure why they get it and, you know, the US models don't. I mean, like you know, having the most braking capability possible would just be better for safety all the way around. But nevertheless, I mean, this is it's adequate for what it is. I mean, at least at these performance levels. I mean, if you started getting way on up there, you know, and speed, you know, up 40 miles an hour on up, like some people, you know, get to modifying them and things like that, you know, I would want to be thinking about, you know, upgrading the brakes as well, you know, so that you could slow down better from speed such as that. But at this level, in stock form, and maybe a little bit above stock form, you know, with some mild modifications, I feel like this brake, you know, is fairly adequate, you know, so it's not a big deal. Back in here, you can kind of see you've got your spark plug down in there. You got your throttle assembly and all like that. There's, you know, you can remove the throttle limiter screw on these and get the throttle to open up a little bit more. I have not yet done that. I know some people modify the governor on these as well. I've not done that yet either. I'm very well aware of all these things. I've watched a bunch of videos of people who have done all these modifications and stuff, and you know, may do them at some point. I'm not really thinking that I would remove the governor, because obviously, you know, the engine, with it not having upgraded internals, at this time and all. I wouldn't want to over rev it, you know, and it come apart like that. The throttle limiter screw, I may back that out, you know, and do that at some point. But, you know, like I said, I'm just enjoying it right now, how it is, and these few little things that I've changed about it have been great. I really think one of the biggest things, if I did performance-wise, would be the torque converter CVT. If I did anything, you know, to improve upon it, and that'll be, you know, a little ways, I guess, down the road probably. Like I said, the tires have done good. You know, they got pretty decent tread for what they are. They're 4-ply rated. The fenders do pretty good about keeping stuff off of you. I will say this, one thing that they could improve upon with this front wheel, and maybe even the back wheel too, and that's maybe something that at some time I may change or try to make something for it, is if you had a mud flap that kind of came off of this fender here that kind of hung behind the tire, to keep it from throwing so much grass and debris up, because when you're riding, you get a lot of that. It gets sucked in to these vents here on this flywheel fan, and it sucks it in and blows it into the shrouding here, and it gets on the cylinder head and stuff like that. That's one thing I've noticed with the front tire kicking that stuff back up. You get a lot of you know, vegetation and stuff like that gets, you know, inside of here, and even in the clutch cover over there that I showed earlier. Right now, you know, now when I popped it off, I had cleaned it out a day or two ago, and it had a ton of grass and stuff in it, you know, that's stuck in there. So because that front tire is chucking that stuff back up, you know, it tends to get caught in the flywheel fan and the clutch cover pretty badly. So I think if you had a mud flap or some kind of plastic skid plate that went on the front of this frame here that blocked what this front tire was kicking back onto the engine, that maybe it would help reduce that stuff possibly. And even on the rear tire too, I mean, if there was something between here and say, you know, maybe halfway down that way, would help this tire from chucking things back up on the valve cover area there and back of the cylinder head. But, you know, it, for what they are, I mean, the stock fenders, they do a pretty good job of catching stuff. You can see all that stuff stuck up under there that would have otherwise been thrown up on you, the rider. And I mean, you get some spray coming up and on the back of the seat, and like, I remember the other day, my jacket had a little bit of mud sprayed up on the back of it, but not a whole lot. I mean, just a few little spots. So all in all, the fenders do a really good job. One thing I was surprised at is these fenders are metal. I thought they would be plastic when I first looked at them. I mean, the tank, the fake tank here is plastic, but the fenders are metal. So I was really impressed with that. I mean, I just would have assumed that they would have been plastic. But they're not, they're pretty sturdy. The oil drain is back here. It's that bolt right there. Super easy to do an oil change on. And I would highly recommend, you know, doing oil changes as frequently as you can. I did the break-in oil to start with, and then I quickly switched over to, you know, full synthetic 10W30 oil like was recommended. And I could tell a big difference when I switched to that full synthetic 10W30, and it just ran a lot smoother and everything. The engine seemed a little bit quieter, you know, and all. And your oil fill, you know, is right up front here. It's on this side right here, you know, and you get a dipstick with that as well. This part of it. And another thing, when you first get one of these, this is what I did, and I heard a lot of other people say the same thing, is when you get it home, check every nut and bolt on it, you know, make sure everything's tight, because, you know, a lot of times if these are assembled by somebody in the store, they're not always, you know, they may miss something. Something may not be tight all the way. So we went through and we put a wrench on every nut and bolt on here, and I think maybe one of my fender bolts was slightly loose, was the only thing. The only thing I had to change was my front tire. It was on backwards. So these have a directional rotation. See if I can find the little arrow there. See it right there? That's showing the rotation of the tire needs to be. And this front tire right here was backwards on here. So all I had to do was take and loosen this nut up, and then the bolt on the other side, pull the steering axle spindle out of the forks, and I had the bike up on a milk crate. That was enough to get it up, front tire up off the ground, and just flip the tire around, put it back through, you know, just torque the bolt down and everything, and that's all there was to that. So really, that was the only thing with mine that was needed to be fixed from whoever assembled it at Lowe's. So I guess I got lucky, because I've heard some people say with the Colemans and the Axis too, you know, that they'll get them, and I mean, every bolt on there is like loose. So some people talk about some of them are only hand tightened and stuff like that, which that's pretty bad. So when you get it home, have a little bit of patience, you know, get your wrenches out, check every bolt everywhere, make sure it's tight. You know, that's just gonna be the best thing for your safety for you start riding. You don't want a wheel or something falling off while you're riding, you know, and cause you to have an accident. So but yeah, you know, other than that, it's been great and all. And you know, the things I mentioned in there, you know, about changing, you know, possibly within time, you know, that I hadn't already done. But like I said, I mean, these things they're a blast though, right out of the store as they are. So you know, it's not the fastest thing in the world, you know, so don't, I mean, you know, you get out there thinking that as soon as you bring it home that you're gonna be able to, you know, just race down the road and all like that. But if you're truly riding it off-road and, you know, and stuff like that, or in your yard or whatever like that, I mean, the stock speed is actually pretty adequate. Now, if you're gonna get out and ride on the road with it, I mean, obviously it is, you know, a little bit too slow for that, you know, and that obviously probably why some people want to start getting higher top speeds out of them then. But anyway, like I said, I'm enjoying mine like it is right now, and just wanted to make a little video on it. You know, I thought it was pretty cool, and you know, possibly might make some more videos on it in the future, you know, if I do anything to it, like a torque converter or, you know, whatnot like that that I've mentioned. We'll see, you know, maybe do an update video on it here and there, how it's doing. But like I said, I'd highly recommend this one. It's just like the Coleman CT200 UEX. It's just with the LED headlight and the suspension seat and a different name and paint job on it. So essentially they're the same bike, and I just went with this one for the LED light and the suspension seat. I thought were nice upgrades over the Coleman, but I like the Coleman too. But anyway, that'll be it for now. Thanks for watching. Just want to make a little video on it, and stay tuned for more videos. I turn the switch to on, fuel on, choke.